much faith do you need to believe this book? Skeptics believe that books like this one can't be trusted for objective information because such books are written by religious people who have an agenda. In fact, that's the way skeptics view the Bible. It's biased. It's a biased book based on written by biased people. Their assessment may be true for some books about religion, but it's not true for them all. If it were, you couldn't trust anything you read concerning books written by atheists or skeptics, because every writer has a viewpoint on religion. So what does this mean to you, the reader? You disbelieve what an atheist writes about Christianity just because he's an atheist? Not necessarily. Because he could be telling the truth. Should you disbelieve what a Christian writes about atheism just because he's a Christian? Again, not necessarily. He could be telling the truth too. But what about an author's agenda? Does an agenda fatally taint his objectivity? If so, no book is objective, including those by atheists and skeptics. Why? Because all books are written for a reason. All authors have an agenda, and all, or at least most authors, believe what they write. However, that doesn't mean that what they write is false or not objective. While authors are almost never neutral about their topics, personal interest drives them, they nevertheless can present their topics objectively. For example, survivors of the Holocaust who wrote of their experience certainly were not neutral bystanders. They believed passionately that the Nazis were wrong, and that they were driven to record their experiences so the world would never forget the Holocaust, and hopefully never repeat it. Did their passion or their agenda cause them to bend the facts? Not necessarily. In fact, their passion may have produced the opposite effect. While passion may induce some people to exaggerate, it may drive others to be all the more meticulous and accurate, so as not to compromise the credibility of the message they wish to communicate. As you'll see, we think the authors of the Bible took this meticulous and accurate road. It's also the road that we're trying to take in this book. And when you're done reading, we hope you'll let us know if you think we've actually taken that road. In the meantime, if you're a skeptic, please keep in mind that you should believe or disbelieve what we say because of the evidence we present, not because we have a certain set of religious beliefs. We came to believe through evidence. We came to believe through evidence. So the fact that we are Christians is not the issue. Why we are Christians is the important point. And that's the focus of this book. Now you can turn to the little atheist. As a preface. On page Roman numeral 7. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So when it comes to coming to faith in Jesus or whatever, that takes faith and everything. So I guess it's kind of a weird question, but is it do you think God thinks it's any different that if you come to faith because of you find some fact you believe is true as opposed to because obviously we can't prove I don't know what I'm trying to say.
You know how in a courtroom, unless there's a smoking gun, it isn't this one thing. This one thing is why you were, found guilty. It's a preponderance of the evidence. It's this, and then this, and this, and then this. And what are the odds that all of these things, that would come together, and it wasn't this time. And so generally in those situations, it's not just one thing that secures the verdict. It's the preponderance of the evidence. And that's what we're going to see here. You might not be wowed by what they're going to say about how Scripture came together. But if you add that to resurrection, and if you add that for what the science and the math, and they're building a case here and at some point, as they said, when do you have enough evidence? And that's an act of the will, right? People can just suppress evidence and say, oh yeah, there's a lot of evidence for Christianity, but they just don't want to. Then Jesus could walk in here right now, say, hey, I'm Jesus, I rose from the dead, believe in me, and they still wouldn't believe because yeah.
So then is coming to faith to Christ because of like those facts that you see over and over again different than coming to him just because you have faith? Or is it just kind of like the result is what?
I think it should be. It's not always the case, right? I mean, Josh trusted Christ and thought, understand, okay, here's the, I don't have enough faith in it. You wouldn't have gotten any of that. And I think it's valid. I mean, I think it's valid to have always believed in Christ. But here's what I mean. If our faith isn't based on truth, isn't based on evidence, it's going to be very strong. Especially if you go to a secular college. You're going to struggle with these people that take classes. And that's exactly why Jude in the Bible is this, and Senior in the Bible is so that, and then we've got some but we're trying to give you the best shot. Yeah, as we walk through this, it's not just this.
I think the one thing that you need to have a completely faith-based decision is the same decision that the disciples had to make, the same decision that everybody who knew Christ had to make, which is he the Messiah or is he not the Messiah? Like at the end of the day, that's where our faith, that's the big question that you need to answer yes or no to.
Yeah.
Like that is what saves our faith and trusting in Christ to receive the grace that God has given us.
And that's profound. It is, because who do you say that I am?
Right. Yeah.
Who do others say that I am? Jesus didn't really care about that question. He asked it, right? But he was leading up to the next one. Who do you say that I am? And each of us has to answer that question. Who do I say? And you know, um, but yeah, you're absolutely right. What was another point you made?
I think like to say it in a different way. Basically, we believe that Jesus was the Son of God, fully man, was not only died as a sacrifice for us, but when he died, he bore all of our sins. So through Christ we're saved. Right.
What I was going to say is, to me, in the Bible, one of the most amazing proofs that Jesus is the Messiah is that we have in John, right? If you remember this, Jesus' brothers making fun of him. Oh yeah, right. You're the Messiah. Come on, you can't be the Messiah. You're our brother. You this is the carpenter. Who are you? Right? Jesus dies. He rises from the dead. At least two of them, at least Jude and James, became followers. What caused to go from? It had to be something. It had to be something.
Knowing more about God and coming to faith to God. You don't need knowledge to come to God. I think you're right. Your son came to Christ at 5 because it's really just defining who he is to you. And if he's the Son of God who's come to save you from your sin, then that's the gospel.
Yeah. But we need to have an examined faith. Sunday school faith,
Yeah.
The Sunday school answer, it's Jesus, and every answer is asking a question and children's, that they'll always say, it's Jesus. So, yeah, we need to have an examined faith. We need to have a measure, not a measure. The preface of the Little Atheist Book. It's no secret that America has become a nation of biblical illiterates. And though things may seem to be getting worse, we believe, however, that we can turn the tide by equipping Christians to know and defend the truth. That's why we are excited to offer an official study guide to the classic book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, so that Christians can gather in small groups throughout America and beyond to examine the overwhelming evidence that proves Christianity is true. It is our prayer that God will ignite a movement to know this truth and become devoted defenders of the Christian faith in a hostile culture. May the book and the companion study guide of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist be resources that will enrich your journey for truth and enhance your defense. And I read that mostly because I just love it. That's my prayer for my students as we I'm going to read a couple of things from this. This isn't something I use a lot, but I use it a little bit. And so I'm just going to read a couple of things just by way of introduction on this, and I might ask you some questions. What is the meaning of life? Is there an ultimate purpose to our existence, or is life just for a glorified monopoly game in which the object is to get as much stuff as you can now because the game is over? Because when the game is over, it's all going back in the box. One preacher put it like this: one day, you are going to die, and your family and friends are going to dress you up, put you in a box, lower you into a hole, put dirt in your face, and then go back to the church to potato salad. Is that it? After years of building a life and developing loving relationships, does the consciousness that is you evaporate when you take the last breath? You simply return. Real, ultimate, unchanging meaning depends on a real, ultimate, unchanging being, God. If there is no God, then there is no ultimate purpose to life. That living in a postmodern, that is why we're seeing a huge uptick in suicides and anxiety and medication and all kinds of things because people are hopeless. And people, and I heard this from Brenda Council decades ago, and I believe it. To those who live in hopelessness, consequences mean those who live in hopelessness, consequences mean so what if I die? So what if I gun down a bunch of kids and I get the electric chair? This is one of the reasons why, and we'll talk about this. One of the reasons why I believe it's so important to have hope, even when we don't have answers. Listen, you can go to a lot of religions and they'll tell you why bad things happen to people. I don't say bad things happening to good people because there are good people. By the way, I had some students use that. But yeah, we are all sinners, and we're not going to, even after we study it at the end of the year, you're not going to get an answer that's like, okay, so I now know why that things happen, why people suffer, why my friend's granddaughter died at 2 weeks ago, and why she was born before she was born. They were told that's it. She lived 2 weeks, but why? I'm not going to get an answer. But here's what I know. And other religions will give you answers that aren't told. But here's what I know. That in my deepest, darkest moment, Jesus has been right there with me. Jesus stands beside me. He cries with me. He comforts me. And I will take hope over an answer and believe. And so we're not going to be able to answer that question. might be able to get it to a point where, okay, that's good enough for me, but ultimately, it's all about trust. That's he is. Well, I'm going to read this again. Real ultimate unchanging meaning depends on real ultimate a real ultimate unchanging being, God. If there is no God, then there is no ultimate purpose to life. We are just molecules in motion. We live for a short time and then cease to exist. Even atheist Richard Dawkins, who is probably the most famous atheist on the planet, Richard Dawkins admits that there is no meaning to life without God. He writes, nature is not cruel, only pitilessly indifferent. This is one of the hardest lessons for humans to learn. We cannot admit that things might be neither good nor evil, neither cruel nor kind, but simply callous, indifferent to all sufferings, lacking all purpose. Is there a God? Is there a God? Is there real purpose to life? Will we live on after we die, or simply cease to exist? These are just a few of the questions we will explore during this day. So, based on what you know so far from your, 16, 17 years on the planet, what you've read, what you've seen, what you've heard, how would you define the meaning of life? What is the meaning?
He said it himself, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So this, my entire life, Galatians 2:20 sums it up. I have been crucified with Christ. So because Christ died on the cross, I've now put to death my life so I can live it to serve God, to love God, and to follow Him, essentially.
I think it can be said two ways, right? I think the purpose of life is to go and serve others and basically be a vessel for God, or another way, to live for others.
Right? To know Christ and to make Him known.
Yeah.
What else? Yep. Okay. We were created to worship, and we will all worship something. We are worshipers. We are created as worshipers. Everyone worships. There was, I think it was Augustine, who said, love God and do as you please. Because if we love God, so I think that's a part of it.
Well,
That's great.
actually, I do have a rebuttal to that. Because there are such a thing as lukewarm Christians. Have you ever like seen one of those showers where there's like 3 knobs, one pours in hot water, one pours in cold water? Imagine the hot water is love for God and the cold water is love for the world. When you mix the two, it's lukewarm. So you can love God and love the world at the same time, which is problematic. More so, yeah, even more so. So you can love God and live your desires, but it's problematic.
At my house, if you just turn on the hot water, you will actually be burned. But also, if you turn on the dishwasher, that
I
it spikes to like 451.
I would submit that it's possible. I don't know that.
I don't think you can fully love God and fully love the
You,
world.
well, yeah, I think
Yeah, it's like
what you're liking.
that's
Yeah.
true.
It's kind of like what the Bible is also saying, like
You're
you
liking
can only
what
have one master.
Yeah.
Good answers. Without God, does life have any ultimate meaning while we're at it? Without God, does life have any ultimate meaning? Why or why not? Obviously, oh. Well, because you're in a box on the ground and you don't even know. You don't even know. Or in there. Anything else?
I get your message. And without that, I wouldn't be here.
Now, can life have meaning? Take out that word ultimate. Can life have meaning?
Honestly, I mean, kind of, but after death, there isn't really a point. Like, you can use your life to try to help others, but if there's no God, there's no reason to do it.
Yeah, life can have meaning without God, but that meaning is usually self-served and to make yourself happy, and it doesn't carry over once you die.
It can be. It can be. There can be some very altruistic people.
Sure.
Followers of Christ.
I was going to say yes at first, but then I thought about it for a second. And if you think about it, so then what would you do on it? So, for example, you do yourself, you do others, you do, whatever you can do, get a pet, take care of a pet, whatever. But eventually, that's not going to have any meaning, eventually. The whole point of literally life on earth is to carry on. So, when we are serving people on earth, it's going to mean. Of course, you don't really think about it when you're doing it, but it ultimately has meaning. Because if God were to think, and we were just buried in the ground and nothing happened. The people that you help for 80 years in your lifetime are going nowhere. Nothing.
Yes.
Well, the reason we serve is because we have that put in us by God, so if God didn't exist, we wouldn't have it. So the only want we would have is the ones that seek us, because God didn't exist. Without him, so none of us would have those grants now, because we wouldn't have been given those gifts by the person in the first place. So I would say we wouldn't have meaning. I guess it kind of depends on what you define meaning as.
Well, you wouldn't be here, would you?
Objectively, no. There would be no consistent objective meaning for everything. Subjectively, however, yes, and so this goes into what everyone's been saying, how it's all what you define. Like when you die, your perspective's gone. And when it's your perspective, it's selfish. And when it's your perspective, it's the world. Like basically it's evil. It's not good. It's not consistent morally. So there would be meaning, but there would be no connection. It would be this rudimentary, like selfish thing. So subjectively, there would be meaning, but there would be no objective meaning of life, which would be the problem.
Yeah, like, if there wasn't any God, then again, it just would be a less kind world. We'd be serving ourselves. We kind of like, we just have an animalistic nature. We just like do what we need to survive and have babies.
Evolution teaches, right?
Yeah.
Survival.
I'm gonna go with Natalie. I think that you could probably find a meaning, like you could find something to involve yourself in, something that you say is your life's purpose, but that's kind of only like in the moment kind of thing, because as soon as you breathe your last breath, it's all over. There's nothing after that.
That's a tough thing to do, right? John.
Like, I know in the Bible says like your lives are really short because in like God's perception of time and how God does time, like it's even more void and fleeting if you don't have God ruling over your life, and then anything you do to try to make it fulfilled is just distraction.
There's this thing that happens as you age. There are a lot of things. But there's this thing that happens as you age. Like when I look back, I moved every 1.8 years of my entire childhood. But I feel like I lived in Brussels or where when I was no, I was here when I was your age. Freshman, sophomore year, I was in Brussels, and it seems like as I look back on it, two things are true, and it's weird. Like that was a really long time. I lived there a really long time. I only lived there 2 years, right? But then the other thing is you hit this age, and it's generally about the time your kids go to school. And then all of a sudden, like you're a grandma. And you look back and it's like, I just, like yesterday. And it's just weird time lapse. And so you get to my age and you're gonna get here, and one of you is gonna remember this, saying this. You get to my age and it's like, how did this go so and you're gonna feel that. Life, when they say life is short, shorter for some people. I don't know. My last birthday, my friend Tony said, well, at least now nobody can say we died young. Thanks, Tony. That's helpful. But it does go fast. Life does go fast. Okay, so let's turn to so what? One of the most relevant and important subjects you can ever investigate is eternity. Why? Because you're going to be dead a whole lot longer. If we exist forever on the other side of the grave, and if our choices on this side determine how we spend eternity, then it's vitally important for us to investigate these questions. So how do we explore the question of eternity? Well, it begins with the question of truth. Some say there is no absolute truth, that everything is just a matter of opinion. As we will see in the next lesson, but we'll see this in the first chapter of our book, the assertion that there is no absolute truth logically contradicts itself. I'll give you a little explain. What am I saying when I say there is no such thing as absolute truth?
You're saying a universal statement, absolute truth, if you will.
Yeah, I'm making an absolute truth. And even if I say, okay, that's the only absolute truth, well, prove that.
Well, you just said another. And I am not yet too.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's where we'll start. After all, if there is no truth, then not even atheism. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. It begins with the basic question of whether truth exists, and using logic and evidence arrives at the conclusion that the Bible is true. If this line of reasoning in the whole world is correct, and be sure that you examine the evidence for yourself, not just take the author's word, then the truth is that you will live. This gives everything you do today an eternal meaning. There can't be anything more important. The 5 most consequential questions. In college, Dr. Turek was exploring the question of whether God exists. This university professor couldn't even give him a basic framework that could provide answers to life's biggest question. That's what a worldview does. It's like the box top to a jigsaw puzzle. A worldview shows how the pieces of life fit together. The true worldview shows you true answers to life's biggest questions. Unfortunately, the most important question to humanity is God exists. Didn't even receive much serious thought in Dr. Turk's university. Since the default worldview of most university professors is atheism, classes are taught with the assumption that there is no God. But any worldview, including atheism, has to provide satisfactory answers for life's biggest questions. What do you think? We will. We're going to stop here today. And then tomorrow we'll pick up with the questions about the info. Future development.